I was born the year Steve Jobs unveiled Apple's first iPhone. The United States House of Representatives elected its first female speaker, Nancy Pelosi. A deadly shooting killed 34 people at Virginia Tech. NASA launched its Phoenix Mars lander. Rihanna released her record-breaking song, Umbrella. And there was growing alarm around global warming. These are the noteworthy historical events of my birth year, 2007, but I'm shaped by more than the larger public events of my era. Looking inward, I was born into the Brooks Graves family. Daughter to James and Laura, sister to Kate, granddaughter to Kathy, Richard, William, and Barbara, great-granddaughter to Catherine, William, Dana, James, Doris, Dale, Ruth, and Charles. These are the generations creating the thread that holds my family together and has shaped the culture and values in which I was raised. I'm a child with a family history composed of generations of ancestors that have paved the way for my existence. When considering who I am, I must think about how my personal family narrative intertwines with a broader sense of history. We are all shaped by the national events, people, and developments of our age, and our family's past. The global happenings of our time are part of the historical record. However, for a long time, the lives of ordinary people, especially women, were not well documented, and were often overlooked or omitted from historical scholarship. As author Susan Armitage writes in the book, The Woman's West, until recently, the usual subjects of history has been the great and famous men. Women were incidental to the story. We can fill in gaps of the past by getting to know our relatives. How many of you know how your parents met or where your grandparents grew up? Throughout the years, my parents and grandparents have shared stories from their childhood. For instance, my grandfather has passed down a beloved cake recipe we call the log, and others call the icebox cake. This cake was marketed during the shift from box refrigerators to electronic refrigerators. We have family traditions like bringing out my grandmother's silverware and embroidered tablecloths for the holidays. Such heirlooms provide continuity and act as a bridge between generations. On the day of my birth, my great-grandmother, whose name Grace I received as my middle name, wrote me a welcome letter. It read, "You will not see much of me, but just perhaps through heredity, you might receive some of my heartfelt appreciation for all the beauty God has given us. The wonders of beautiful flowers, springtime budding trees, fall leaves, sunsets, birds, and beautiful waterways. Somewhere you might hear a love of music and a sense of art." Reading this letter now, I realize a shared connection for nature, art, and music. Although I don't remember much of her, she died when I was 5, I feel her love. Family history personalizes historical events. Two of my favorite classes, European history and American history, are fast-paced, leaving little time for reflection. I was curious how the lives of my deceased relatives fit into the timeline. For example, in European history, we studied World War II. We learned that the war was sparked by an invasion of Poland. We learned the power of a blitzkrieg attack and the role fighter pilots played in shaping the outcome of many battles. What we didn't learn was who was flying those planes. My great-great-uncle Bill Quaintance was a fighter pilot on a B-17 Flying Fortress who flew on 17 missions throughout the war, fighting in some of the battles we studied in class. In 1944, on his 17th mission, Bill was killed in action. He was one of the 405,399 American casualties in World War II, but his absence left a void for his fiancée and my family. This connection made me more invested in the war and fueled my growing desire to link my personal history with the history taught in school. This research felt daunting, so I decided to start with the lives of my two great-grandmothers, both of whom had a passion for preserving family history. When I expressed interest to my maternal grandfather about his mother, Doris Grace, he showed up to my house with a photo album. Doris grew up on a cattle ranch in Boulder, Montana in the 1920s. As a young girl, she preferred helping her father with outside farm chores to domestic indoor life. Doris loved horses and rode her horse Frenchie to a one-room schoolhouse every day. As a child living during the Great Depression, she recalls receiving the ultimate Christmas gift from a wealthy aunt, oranges. Doris's mother, May, was a cold and rather emotionless person, the result of a life filled with many deaths. For that reason, Doris strived to be cheerful. I admire her love of animals and evident positivity. Doris has taught my grandfather, my mother, and now me to value kindness. I had a similar experience talking with my paternal grandfather. His mother, Dana, was bright, ambitious, and free-spirited. As a high school student in Chickasha, Oklahoma, she and her friends would hold hands and roller skate through the streets to school. They held up traffic every day until finally being called into the principal's office. Dana eventually became a school teacher in a one-room schoolhouse, teaching children from kindergarten to high school. Dana, to me, represents someone who loves learning and sharing her knowledge with others. During the first half of the 20th century, opportunities for women were limited and gender roles strictly defined. In college, my great-grandmother Doris studied dietetics. White, middle-class women of her day were expected to learn about nutrition to prepare for motherhood and family life. My grandfather wished Doris would have been more free to build upon more of her interests. As a leader on the campus of University of Montana, Doris was featured in a national magazine. Sadly, the newspaper article on this accomplishment does not focus on her leadership qualities or academic success, but rather praises her good looks and popularity. Dana also commented on conventional roles and limitations of womanhood. During World War II, she took an engineering course so that she could work in a Navy yard. The teachers were surprised that a woman could master engineering. She was proud to prove them wrong, saying, "So they changed their view on women's aptitude, and that gave me some satisfaction." I am grateful that as a teenager living during the 2020s, I can pursue the same career opportunities as men. My great-grandmothers, Doris and Dana, both middle-class and college-educated, had an impulse for preserving their stories. They saved vital objects, photographs, letters, and even voice recordings of themselves. Uncovering the past is easiest when there is a historical record, like the record my great-grandmothers carefully left. The historical record of my other two great-grandmothers, neither of whom had the financial means to attend college, is not strong. Class, race, and gender impact the historical record. Learning about ancestry builds self-identity, and research backs this up. In 2001, Dr. Marshall Duke and Dr. Robin Feibusch of Emory University developed the Do You Know scale to test their hypothesis that kids that knew more about their family background were more resilient and could bounce back faster from challenges than children that knew less about their family history. The scale is composed of 20 simple questions, including the ones I asked earlier. Do you know how your parents met, and where did your grandparents grow up? These questions share a common factor, that children cannot know the answers from experience. Someone has to have told them the answers. In the summer of 2001, Dr. Duke and Dr. Feibusch asked these questions of 48 families. The New York Times describes the professor's conclusions that the more children knew about their family history, the higher their self-esteem, and the more successfully they believed their families functioned. Then, the tragic events of 9/11 happened, prompting Dr. Duke and Dr. Feibusch to go back and reassess the 48 families. Again, the professors concluded that the ones who knew more about their families proved to be more resilient, meaning they could moderate the effects of stress. Additionally, Dr. Duke describes every family story as an oscillating family history, meaning inevitably good and bad things happen. The families that were most resilient transmitted an oscillating family narrative. They told their kids about both those good and bad things that happened to their ancestors and how they moved forward after the bad things. While my research only goes back a few generations, genealogical DNA testing can provide insight on where one's ancestors lived 6 to 7 generations back with high accuracy. Well, 50 years ago, Doris compiled handwritten letters and printed photographs in a large scrapbook. Today, there are so many options for designing keepsake books online. Using church records, my maternal grandfather tracked the acquaintance bloodline back 10 generations. He then visited England and sent me pictures of where our ancestors likely lived as illiterate peasants near Exeter. Without electricity, indoor plumbing, cars, or technology, the lives of my great-grandmothers were so different from my own. However, by looking into my family's past, they're vivid in my imagination. I can visualize the young girl riding her horse to school and the teenager holding up traffic with her friends. Our lives are unfolding, and it's uncertain what the future holds, but the past has already occurred. Many people think of their ancestors only occasionally when our parents pull out an old item from the basement or attic. Embracing our heritage provides a new perspective and a stronger sense of identity. I encourage you all to bridge generations by approaching your family history with curiosity and interest. Reach out to a parent or grandparent with a simple question like, do you have a favorite memory from high school? And don't wait. Our older family members won't be around forever. Take advantage of their stories and advice now. I hope you can grow closer to your relatives, both living and gone. As author Sue Mock Kidd says, stories have to be told or they die. And when they die, we can't remember who we are or why we're here. I agree. It's up to us to engage with our family history, to keep the memory of our ancestors alive. Through us, they live on. Thank you.